You're on.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd like to call this work session of the Durham City Council to order at 1 o'clock on April the 9th, 2020. This extraordinary work session, the first that we've had through our virtual format. And I want to welcome those people who are listening in on a couple of different channels on which this is publicly available. I want to say that we did have public comment open through email. And I believe we received one comment on an item which my understanding is that the administration is going to ask to have referred back. But just wanted to mention that to our public. We're still working on how we're going to do public comment in the future, but thank you to the clerk for getting us started. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Mayor Schewel.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Alston. Where are you? Councilmember Caballero.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Present.
Councilmember Middleton.
Here.
And Councilmember Reese.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm now going to ask if there are announcements by members of the council.
Mr. Mayor, would this be the appropriate time to give our valedictory addresses for
Yes, it would.
Councilor Alston?
I think it would. I think it would, Councilmember Middleton. Why don't you do that?
Okay, I don't know if you had a prescribed order. If
No, order, go for it.
I just want to simply say what a supreme privilege and pleasure it has been to serve with this remarkable individual, Venable Alston. Oftentimes in politics, people on the outside looking in will try and define relationships by issues. And issues come and go. Today's yes is tomorrow's no, and issues evolve, but what remains are relationships and character. And I am absolutely the better. And I think our city is the better because Venable Alston has sat on this body. I know I'm personally better. Before Councilor Caballero came and joined our trio down on the right side of the podium, because if you're from the audience's point of view, our side of the dais is the right side of the dais. Councilor Alston was my seatmate and had a wonderful time considering the issues of the city, but also the banter we enjoyed back and forth when we hoped the microphones were off. So I just want to wish Godspeed to you and your family, your protection, health, and safety as you take on this new assignment. I could not ask for a better person to be fighting for us in the legislature. And listen, we won't stop with a period or an exclamation point, but just a comma to be continued. Go well, Godspeed to you. Congratulations, and thank you for all you've done for us and what you will continue to do for us. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you for those great comments, council member. Any other comments? I think that Mark Anthony has said it as well as we could, any of us could, Venable. That was a beautiful tribute and absolutely right. And I just want to second on behalf of all of us and our city, what Mark Anthony said. We are going to miss you tremendously, but we know you're going to be amazing up there. And you'll be hearing from us about things that we want.
Absolutely. And Councilmember Middleton, I was muted. Thank you very much. I don't feel like I deserve those kind words, but I appreciate them. I appreciate all of you. I leave reluctantly. I'd hope we have the chance to do more work together. We'll just have to do it in a different way. I love you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Councilmember Alston.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Freeman.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to move to the comments around this pandemic that we're in, and just noting that I want to take a moment and just express my sincere condolences. I know lots of folks have been hearing about people that have been lost. I do know of quite a few members in our community who have experienced a loss, and I want to take a moment and just make sure that I express publicly how hard these times are, and noting that this is a healthcare crisis. And again, that the losses we're experiencing, the numbers we see, but the people we don't. And just noting that there are a lot of people among us who are experiencing the grief that comes along with this loss, and just making sure we all take a moment and slow down to check in with others. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council Member, and very well said. And I really appreciate those important words. I also have a couple things to announce. One is I did a message to our community. Yesterday was day 29 from our first case. And I've done it. I did the message in English and in my really terrible Spanish. The English version apparently is up. And if you all would share that widely and urge other people to share it, I think that would be great. And I think the Spanish version should be up soon because I did the English version in one take and the Spanish version in many takes. The videographers are having to paste that together. So once they have done that mammoth task, they will have that ready as well. So that was one thing. Another thing I wanted to announce, and this was made public today, is that CRE Corporation has donated 20,000 N95 masks to Duke University Health System, which is fantastic. They have a factory in China, in Guangzhou province. They thought they were going to need those masks over there. They didn't. They shipped them to Durham. And now they're in the hands of Duke University Health System, which is great. And we had a little announcement about that today. So those were two things on my mind. And the only other thing that I wanted to say just prior to us talking about the agenda is that I have received information of a potential contribution to the city for emergency uses from a private foundation. And they don't want it to be public who they are yet, but they want the money to go out fast for emergency uses. And what I wanted to do is sometime at the end of this agenda for us to empower our city manager. I don't want to wait until we have to get together 10 days from now to have money available to feed our children and our elders and so forth. So I was hoping that at some point at the end of the meeting, we could add an agenda item where we would discuss and give approval to our administration to be able to expend those funds when they arrived. So I just wanted to put that on the radar and ask the manager if we could make that happen, perhaps as one of his priority items. Okay, any other announcements by members of the council? All right, thank you all. Then we're going to move to priority items by the city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Priority items from the city manager, certainly just heard from the mayor. And we have three other priority items. Agenda item number 4, which is the request to initiate a neighborhood protection overlay for Forest Hills. That item is to be referred back to the administration. Agenda item number 17, 2019 fourth quarter crime report. Just note that the attachments 2 and 3 have been added since the agenda went out. And agenda item number 23 is a supplemental item, the Ashton Place Development Loan Commitment. And those are my priority items.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager. Can I have a motion on the 4 items by the manager?
So moved.
Second.
So now we have to think about how to vote. I'm going to ask each person to raise their hands and just long enough for us to count, okay? Except maybe on these perfunctory ones, I'll just ask for a voice vote. Is that all right with everybody? Okay, so all in favor of the manager's priority items, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion passes unanimously. All right, thank you all very much. And now, Madam Attorney, are there any priority items from the City Attorney's Office?
There are not, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I have no items from the City Clerk's office.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, now we'll move to administrative consent items. We have really two different lists here, colleagues. As you know, we have one list, which is items that we have already worked through at our March the 5th work session, and then we're not able to eventually pass on the following Monday because we had to cancel that meeting. And those items are all marked here on the agenda. I'm going to read all the items, but my expectation is that we're not planning to discuss those ones from March the 5th. If anyone has something particularly about any of those items, of course, we can discuss it. But I know my plan and the administration's plan is to mainly focus on those items which we had not previously discussed, which is about half the items on the agenda. Item City Clerk's Office, item 1, approval of City Council minutes. This was one of those items that was for March the 5th, but I do want to just pull it because I think we should discuss a little bit about what our expectations are about minutes and statements that are made and so forth. There have been a couple of emails about that I think would be useful to us. So I'm going to pull item 1. Item 2, boards, committees, and commissions 2019 attendance reports. That was also on the March 5th agenda. Item 3, citywide strategic plan performance audit, February 2020. And if you want to pull an item, please yell, as you usually do. Item 4, under city county planning, request to initiate a neighborhood protection overlay for Forest Hills. This has been referred back to the administration. Under Department of Community Development Block Grant, CDBG contract with Urban Ministries of Durham. This also was on the March 5th agenda. Item 6, second contract amendment with the Housing Authority of the City of Durham Community Development Block Grant subrecipient contract for the rehabilitation of Laurel Oaks townhomes. This was also discussed at March 5th. Housing Authority of the City of Durham grant funding request, McDougal Terrace. That is an item for today.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
is someone from the Housing Authority on the line?
I don't know
No.
that.
No.
Okay.
If you have any questions that staff cannot answer, I mean, questions, please let us know. Staff will attempt to answer them. And if, part of my video on, if we're not able to answer them, then we can get you the answers in time for the council meeting.
I was just thinking it would be good to have an update about how the progress is going at McDougal and folks being moved back home, but I don't know if staff has that information.
We have some of that information, but at this point it's a couple days old, so I don't know that it would be fair to say something that may not
Okay.
be.
I'll follow up with our Housing Authority director and make everyone aware.
Right. We'll be glad to follow up with in writing any updated information we have so all the council members have it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And also, just on item 5, I wanted to add a comment to say I really appreciated the demographic information being included in the breakdown, and that was pretty much all.
Thank you, Council Member. And thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, we'll now move to item 8, emergency response plan and source water risk and resilience plan, also appeared on the March 5th agenda. Item 9, resolution of support for reclassifying a segment of the Eno River for water supply, appeared on the March 5th agenda. Item 10, 2020 manhole rehabilitation south, award of construction contract to Bionomic Services, Inc., appeared on the March 5th agenda. Item 11, 2020 manhole rehabilitation north, award of construction to AM Liner East, Incorporated, also appeared on the March 5th agenda. Finance Department, item 12, Durham Sports Commission interlocal agreements, also appeared on the March 5th agenda. Item 13, bid report, February 2020. Under general services, item 14, lease to the Museum of Durham History at 521 West Morgan Street, Durham, NC, parcel number 103-112. I'd like to pull that.
I wanted to pull that item.
All right, thank you, thank you. Item 15, amendment to the construction management risk CMAR contract for construction service with Skanska USA Building, Inc. for the Hoover Road Park project. I
wanted to pull that item.
Okay, you want to pull that? Okay, item 15. Item 16, proposed acceptance of offer to donate property located at 2702 and 2704 Dearborn Drive.
Just a question specifically, if there's more information that's coming on this, I don't want to pull it, but I just have no context for this item.
Would you like more information about what the water department plans to do with it?
Yes.
Okay.
And I know that was going to be a presentation.
Send us a little more information on that. Police Department, and then I think we should say thank you to Mr. Preston for his donation. Item 17, Police Department 2019 fourth quarter crime report. We have the attachments. The way we're going to handle that this time is if you have any questions about the report, please email them to the city manager and to Chief Davis. Item 18, Public Works Department, Buckingham Road Culvert Replacement, SD 2020-03. This item appeared on the March 5th work session. Item 19, Alpine Road Culvert Replacement, SD 2020-04, also appeared on the March 5th agenda.
And Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out again, just the comment so that we don't have to pull it. This is actually just demonstrating how the departments are moving in the direction of making sure that there are POC, people of color included, and not just at the labor level. And so I really appreciated that contractor being selected.
Thank you for those comments. Item 20, Street and Infrastructure Acceptances. This was on the March 5th work session. Item 21, Utility Extension Agreement with VC Owner LLC to serve Venable Center Office. Under Technology.
I want to pull that item.
Okay, 21. Under Technology Solutions Department, Virtual Chief Information Security Officer, vCISO Managed Services. I'd like to pull item 22. And then supplemental items, Department of Community Development, item 23, Ashton Place Development Loan Commitment.
I'd like to pull that.
Is there going to be a present? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So thank you all. Mr. Manager, the items I have pulled are 1, 14, 15, 21, 22, and 23.
Thank you. That's what I have as well, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you very much. And for those staff who were here awaiting the possibility of speaking on other items, we thank you for being here virtually and hope you can do something more interesting than this for the rest of your afternoon. Okay. Now we'll go through our administrative consent items. The first is the approval of the City Council minutes, item 1. There was some discussion today on email with Councilmember Freeman and the clerk, and in which the clerk described how she makes a decision about how much of someone's remarks to include when there is the instead is the summary of remarks, that kind of thing. So I just wondered, Madam Clerk, if you wanted to describe for a minute to people how you and Ashley Wyatt make decisions about how you make decisions about what to summarize, what to put word for word, and those kinds of things. Could you just talk about that?
The minutes are written in a summary fashion. We do not do word for word or verbatim minutes unless a council member says for the record. And then after that point, we do verbatim, but typically they are summary. We write down the main topic of conversation, if there are any questions, what the questions are and the answers. And we also give an update from the staff on their staff reports.
Sorry. So if anyone wants their remarks to be recorded verbatim, they would need to say that ahead of time.
Yes.
And I also think it's helpful a couple of times when I've had one of the remarks in the record to make them available to you in writing subsequently, so that what we are, would like to do as little as possible is have the clerk have to, go through the whole thing and write down everything word for word. Sometimes that has to happen. But insofar as we can, if we can give written remarks to the clerk, I think it would be helpful to her to, if something we want to, so if I'm going to, let's say, trying to remember an occasion when I might have wanted something verbatim in the record, Madam Clerk.
We enter your state of the city verbatim.
Yes, right, exactly. So I just made that available to the clerk. So I just wanted to get an understanding out so that we all had it of when she does that and when she doesn't. Any thoughts, questions, concerns? Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Madam Clerk. I would note that this is historically the for the record utterance by speakers had a different meaning before the age of being able to record everything, be it by sound or video. So it's become more kind of a political tool these days because everything is memorialized via video recording and audio recording. So if there were any concern moving forward about being able to recapture or having our words memorialized, we tape everything. So for the record, I just want to say historically it's taken on a different meaning than it used to serve. Because
For the record, you just want to say that for the record.
For the record, I'd like the record to reflect all of those.
Okay. Well, I think that's a
I
great
will be
point.
sure to include for the record from now on.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great point Councilmember Middleton's making, though, if I understand it correctly, which is that a lot of times we say for the record, we don't really mean we need our remarks written in the minutes verbatim. Is that what you're saying, Councilmember?
Absolutely. Once upon a time, it was a signal to the scribes to take everything down, but technology has utterly changed the usage and meaning of the phrase. You're on the record by virtue. We record everything, so it's going to be memorialized. So yeah, that is my point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think I just want to make sure that I explain that in the question that I asked, it wasn't even close to what I had said, though. It wasn't even, the description wasn't close to what I was saying. And so that was, and if I didn't go back and listen to it, I wouldn't have even noticed, but I did go back to listen to it and saw that it was not even close.
Let us know what it is and we'll review it.
And I think I shared that in the email.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a different issue.
Also, additionally, I mean, if folks provide, one day I hope we get to the point where we are translating all of our minutes. And so
that would be helpful.
And so I will say I take the mayor's words to heart because that will actually make that process fundamentally easier if there's written, because it is to go back not only for an English speaker, but whatever other language we're translating into. So it will be double the work. So if folks do have lengthier comments, then I can see where the practice of submitting written to the clerk, if that's how you want them captured, is potentially a good practice.
Yes, that would be great.
Well, so let me just, I'm trying to think about what Councilmember Middleton said too, because I think that's important. That is, Madam Clerk, I'll just say that from my standpoint, if someone says for the record, to me, that doesn't mean that you therefore have to get every word in their remarks. I think you can still summarize their remarks, and then we all can do what Councilmember Freeman said, which is, we read the minutes, and I've done this once or twice, and I see, well, that didn't really capture what I felt like I said. I'm going to let the clerk know that, and then you can do that. But I want to make sure that there's a comfort level with the council and the clerk on that sort of procedure. Anybody want to comment on that? Councilmember Reese, I think you have your hand up.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I think that's entirely reasonable. I will confess that it had never occurred to me that use of the phrase "for the record" would trigger some kind of verbatim transcription in the minutes themselves. I have to say, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. That's probably not, strictly speaking, necessary, given the fact that anyone can go back and listen to the audio or watch the video. On the nature of the summaries themselves, I think I just want to say that a lot of times I know that I try to make a point in remarks to the council that is sometimes only clear to me, and sometimes not even clear to me. And so I would just want to say that as I go back and read through minutes, I want you to know that with respect to my own comments, I will be incredibly charitable about you not getting what I was trying to say, because like I said, oftentimes it's not reasonable to assume that someone would know what I'm saying. But I appreciate the effort and the work that goes into it. And if I see something that I think does violence to what I was trying to say, I make sure to let you know. So thanks for that, and I appreciate the opportunity to comment. Thanks.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor, are you suggesting that that the phrase "on the record" would not trigger a verbatim record, that we would have to ask the clerk, I would like this recorded verbatim, or provide it later as an alternative? Yeah, I think that sounds good. I also didn't ever, I mean, I think I don't ever use that phrase, but it didn't occur to me that phrase was in any way a notice to the clerk to record minutes in a different way than they would usually have done.
Everybody good? Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Good.
Understood.
Thank you so much.
Everything. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move on now to item 14. Item 14 is the lease to the Museum of History. I believe, Councilmember Freeman, did you pull this item, the lease to the Durham History Museum? I had a couple questions, but I think you pulled it as well.
Yes, I did. My question was specific to just how long and whether there was a plan in place regarding this location. I know that, hold on, I had it up.
Hi, David.
Good afternoon. Good
to see
afternoon,
you.
David Fleischer, General Services Department. Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. The term of this lease is 15 years to allow for the museum to exercise their capital campaign and raise long-term funding. However, the city has indicated that we don't have a specific use for this property over the next 10 years. So we built into the lease a 10-year clawback where we could give them at the 10-year mark a 2-year notice to vacate the property. And again, the example we thought of what the city is holding that property for and what we could use it for in the future is some reconfiguration of the downtown loop. And so we want to keep that property in our back pocket.
That was where.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fleischer. Councilmember Freeman, any other questions?
And when I said the how long, I meant like how long. So the 5 years, and in the 5 years, there's a plan. Is there a plan already in place for how long it would be in that downtown location?
The museum has not indicated where they're going to go in the long-term future. However, we've given them this 15-year term, and at that time, the city has the ability to either allow them to exercise their 2 more 5-year options to renew, totaling a total of 25 years. But again, we're thinking of 15 years plus 5 plus 5. And after the first 10 years, we have the clawback to allow us to request that they vacate the property.
So for the record, there's no location identified elsewhere.
Correct, ma'am.
There's nothing going on right now. Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those were actually, I had similar questions. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Fleischer? Hag Sameach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Happy holidays to you.
You too. All right, thank you. I will now move to item 15, amendment to the construction manager at risk CMAR contract for the Hoover Road project. And Councilmember Freeman, you also pulled this item.
I actually was just trying to get an update. I'm not familiar with the Hoover Road project, and so I wasn't sure if it was, I think there was something a couple of years ago that came up, but I wasn't sure if it was the same or if it was something different.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Henry Prosperi, General Services.
Mr. Prosperi, welcome.
So this is a brand new park out off of Hoover Road. It is a primarily for soccer. There's going to be 4 new soccer fields, parking lots, restrooms. It's like a 50-acre park. What else can I tell you about the project?
So this is the park. I'm sorry. This is the park by Hoover by Wheels.
Yeah.
And I think I'm thinking about the bowling alley. That's why. Okay. Okay. That's separate.
So the
Okay.
project
That was
was
pretty much it.
previously seen for the design phase as well as the pre-construction for the construction manager at risk.
Okay.
All right. All righty. Any other questions
you.
for Mr. Prosperi? Thank you so much. I am super excited about this. I am so excited that we are going to be building these fields. That is awesome. And
It's going to be an excellent project.
it is. And congratulations to the administration for pushing through this and being so opportunistic in acquiring the land. And I'm very, very excited. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll now move to item 21. This is item utility extension agreement with the VC owner LLC, and this was Councilmember Freeman.
I'm sorry, I'm toggling through to try to keep my email that has all of it in there. 15.
Take your time.
This was, I'm sorry, this is item 21.
21.
The VC Owners LLC, just noting that the reimbursement, the way that it's set up is that we're reimbursing the organization for this utility extension. So they're paying up front.
This is Robert Joyner of Public Works Engineering. That is correct, Councilmember Freeman. They are paying all of the costs up front, and we are reimbursing after we receive all inspection reports and confirmation of all paid items by the contractor.
And is that the normal procedure? I'm sorry.
That is the normal procedure for reimbursement.
That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Joyner? Thank you, Mr. Joyner.
Thank you all.
I'll now move to item 22. And I believe I've pulled this item. This is the Virtual Chief Information Security Officer, Managed Services. And my question is this inspired by our recent troubles? And how will this, I understood reading the memo that there was that we need more support in this area, and that we had one person who was kind of overseeing this. And I think it referred to the fact that this is a single point of possible failure and we needed a kind of broader level of support. But just wanted to understand a little bit more about what this is about.
Kerry Good, CEO, Director of Technology Solutions. Let me say that this was part of our growth of our cybersecurity program. We had planned to hire senior cybersecurity analysts and a vCISO, SOC services, and as enhancements to our cybersecurity program. Before we could deploy all of this, we got hit with a malware event. So what we did in the emergency, we brought Securance on quicker through an emergency type procurement to get his assistance in the recovery process. But Securance have been working with the city for the last several years and doing security audits. And recently they responded to an RFP to become our vCISO. So they were very, very familiar with our network beyond what a typical vendor would know. And that's why we were so successful in recovering, because we had vendors and partners that already were experts on our network.
Great, thank you. That's good to understand. Are there other questions for Mr. Good?
I also had questions, and I just wanted to know if you thought that this was going to be solved in having the contractor versus bringing on additional staff.
Yeah, as far as strategy, in my opinion, and based on my experience and knowledge, having a single CISO internally brings risk of turnover. Having a company like Securance who have several employees being the vCISO gives us more resiliency in the event that we have a crisis. So for services that are critical, like network support and managed security services, it's more effective, in my opinion, to have managed services versus employees, unless we could have a deep bench where we have several doing security within the organization, and that wouldn't be as efficient as having a managed services type contract.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Freeman, and thank you, Mr. Good. Any other questions on this contract? I do have one other question, which is, while you're here with us, if you could just give us a brief update on where we are in our recovery and what we think we still need to do.
Okay, the recovery is going very well. I was even surprised myself how fast we were able to get our business systems back in production. I think we got them back in 2 days, 2 working days. We had our core business systems back in production. Right now, the effort in the public safety looks, we're almost 100% recovered. It's mainly in the endpoint or the workstations arena that we're working today. And we got about 2,500 to 2,600 workstations re-imaged and cleared. We just need to redeploy them in the facilities. And that's going very well. We have a small contingent in City Hall that comes in a couple of days a week to continue working on that. But I have to say that it's drawing to a closure, and by the end of April, I anticipate we've been back to normalcy as far as this event being behind us. We have hardened every server and every workstation, and it's working very well. Anytime activity occurs that's suspicious, the workstation gets shut down, and we have to resolve it. Same thing with our servers. So everything has been hardened. I think that puts us in a position that I don't believe that an attack can bring us down rapidly anymore, because we got Sentinel on every workstation and every server. And also we got Infusion Point security operations services monitoring our network 24/7. So I feel much more confident that we're in a better position today than we were when the event occurred.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to you and your team.
Thank you.
Congratulations to Deputy City Manager Page and all of the pre-planning that you all did. I am so impressed with the fact that we just did very, very well. And I'm just so grateful for all the pre-planning that you all did that made that possible.
I mean, we thank you and council for your support of the budget that we requested, that allowed us to, and the city manager's office, allow us to prepare like we did, because it was the preparation that made the difference.
Colleagues, anything else for Mr. Good? Carrie, thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to item 23. Item 23 is Ashton. This is a supplemental item. Ashton Place Development Loan Commitment.
I had a question about that.
Yes, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Reginald, do you have a sense of the timeline on the tax credit application for that project?
Yes, Reginald Johnson, Director, Department of Community Development. The application is due in May, the middle of May, and we expect to hear results in August.
Great, thank you. And we're submitting, if I remember correctly, at the same time as the DHA projects, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
So depending on which one, if we get a tax credit, depending on which one gets selected, we'll just put resources into that one first?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I know in the past there have been other projects in the city of Durham that haven't gone through the city or through the DHA that have been put into the tax credit process. Do we have any sense of whether there are other developers that are submitting for Durham projects this round?
Mayor Pro Tem, we don't have any that I know of. Richard Valzanis is on this call as well. He may have some additional information, but right now we are not aware of any.
Thank you.
Do we know how the DHA application scored?
I'll have to defer to Richard Valzanis. He may know the answer on that question.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Richard Valzanis with Community Development. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Valzanis. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Two responses. I think the city of Durham, there's only 3 applications that were submitted to the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency from the city. And then what was the second question?
What would those 3? First of all, there was the Housing Authority 9%. There was the Ashton.
Oh, correct. The site score is correct. All 3 sites received a perfect score.
Great. And what was the 3rd site?
So I think the Housing Authority submitted 2 sites, and
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
right, and then we submitted the 3rd.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Hello, perfect. So does that mean we have no idea which one will get an award, if any, if they all got the same score and they were all perfect scores?
Yes, ma'am. We don't know. They still have to continue with the process. What we do know is that if they did not receive a perfect site score and there was 1 point less, that seriously diminishes that particular project's opportunity for success.
Got it. Thank you. That's helpful.
So this is this commitment is contingent on them being a selected project. Are we also anticipating hearing from the Housing Authority for gap financing ahead of time for their potential project?
Yes, sir. We are actually, we're due to receive some information from them this afternoon.
Great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the foresight that this represents. It's great to see us working so closely with our affordable housing partners. So, Reginald, congratulations to you and the department. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Richard. Any other questions? Oh, yes, I have one more question for you, Reginald. The land cost. There's $925,000 for land cost. I thought the land was free.
I'm going to defer to Richard Valzanis on that question.
Okay.
So Mayor Schul, if you recall, the $925,000 is for the additional parking that was included as part of the phase 1 construction. If you recall, we included parking for the 2nd phase of development in the phase 1 construction. So that's what that 925 is for.
Kind of their share of the parking.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Johnston or Mr. Valzanis? Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council.
On my, Mr. Manager, I believe the item that I raised is the final item on our agenda. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
So colleagues, I got a call from a private foundation, local, that would like to donate money to the city. They're giving money to they're planning to give money to other private organizations, but to the city for the specific purposes of immediate use for very emergent needs, such as feeding our children. I talked to Tom about this, and one of the things that we need to do is, there's a process that has to happen when we get money. I discussed with this potential donor that that they might want to give it directly to another organization that can move more quickly. They said that they wanted to give it to the city for us to use, but for these uses, mainly because they're giving to some of these other organizations anyway. They're about to give to some of these organizations and they want to spread it around. So my concern is that these emergency needs are truly emergency needs. That feeding people, they're talking about mainly helping with feeding and homelessness. And so I wanted us to give an advance approval to our administration when they receive these funds, that they didn't have to wait to come back to us to obligate they could obligate them and then, expend them, and then could come back to us for a future approval. And so that's what I wanted to do, and was hoping that we could do that today, and wanted to hear from you all your thoughts on that. Councilmember Caballero?
Yeah, just curious as to how would that work? Would the city just, I know that we're working on the housing our homeless population in hotels. I know that there's conversations between DPS, the county, the city, and the DPS Foundation around a countywide food plan. Is the idea that it would go to support those efforts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that would be the idea, and that's the idea of the funder. They're going to put some parameters around it, but they're going to be exactly the parameters that we know are our most emergent needs, which are support for homelessness work and support for feeding students and seniors. And so I think that what would be good, what we would be doing is empowering the manager to say, working, this money would then go to those groups that are doing that work.
That makes sense to refunnel it back to the nonprofits who are handling it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I have a follow-up question. I know some of my other colleagues have questions. Is it okay if I just keep going?
Absolutely, please do. Okay. All your questions. Yeah.
As we identify needs in our community, and you raised this some on Monday night when we were thinking about the work that the city is venturing into around supporting our small business owners and the folks who are not able to access, they're not going to get a stimulus check, things like that. We know that within the undocumented community, rent assistance and cash assistance, often for rent, is huge. We also know that folks are getting evicted even though it's not supposed to be happening, and that they're not even getting counted in our numbers. And so as these types of philanthropic dollars maybe come to us, or we hear about things, I just hope that really seeing that need, and that these are communities who often have nothing else other than what we can cobble together locally. So just basically, this is a plea to not forget that as we think about how we're supporting our residents.
Thank you. I think that I especially think as we do our small business work, that's going to have to be a gap that we fill, and agree with you. Any other comments or questions, Councilmember Caballero?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Middleton?
Thank you. And I want to thank Councilor Caballero. I want to associate myself with her comments and concerns as well. And she really provided the on-ramp for my line of inquiry, and that is how wide a berth of discretion do we have in terms of spending. I don't know how much money we're talking about, so I don't know how many people we can help or how many organizations we can help, but would it be helpful for us to perhaps give some type of prioritization, like feeding kids is first, eviction assistance for immigrant community second, or business needs second? I'm just wondering, would that be helpful, or does the manager, I don't want to unduly burden the manager with making a determination as to what is truly priority, if we can help him with that vision, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Let me ask the manager, do you have any thoughts about what will be helpful?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I mean, the one I'm most familiar with that we've spent the most time on is the feeding the children, and through the Durham Public Schools Foundation. I'm not aware of the other issues that I think probably would need more structure around. I think it's possible that we could look for another foundation to provide, or maybe do some incremental funding depending on the need of the foundation. But my sense in the calls you've been on and I've been on is that there's a tremendous need around this feeding issue, particularly with the changes that took place, the decisions that took place from Durham Public Schools about what they were able to do or not with the capacities they had. So, I think I'm familiar with the dollar amount that you have mentioned, even though I know you may not be in a position to talk about that today. And I think that, quite frankly, would be used up pretty quick before we started, parsing that up into smaller and smaller amounts. I'm not sure it would be that helpful. Not that those other issues aren't going to be on our plate, but for this amount of money, it's probably be more administrative burden to start carving it out and thinking about other foundations or groups that would administer the funds. And hopefully there'll be other opportunities through other foundations and grants that will be coming that we can look for that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilmember Caballero?
Yeah, just real quick, I assumed with this amount of money, it would go to the countywide feeding plan, because we know that that's a huge need. More just as if these other kinds of opportunities come up, where other philanthropic dollars come our way, that we do have a process and identified nonprofits who are meeting the needs. Durham Land Trust, DCLT has put out rent assistance. The Immigrant Solidarity Fund is already out of money. I think we're going to keep seeing that. So just to name a few, moving forward.
Yeah, I think that I appreciate all of these comments. I think that my assumption is that most charitable dollars won't come directly to the city. They'll go to other places. I think this will not probably be unique, but pretty unique. And so I think we could, that's my thought. We may be getting more, but I think mainly we're going to be being asked for money for, and wanting to provide some funding where we can to some of these key of our own, to some of these key causes. Other thoughts, comments? Councilmember Freeman?
Thank you. I appreciate all the conversation, and just wanted to add that it's beyond just the feeding for children and for seniors and the homelessness. There's also costs associated with putting loved ones to rest. That's not been identified. Any resources have been identified to assist with that. And then noting that specifically with the work we've been doing at Durham Children's Initiative, it's been really helpful to know that not just trying to give folks the food itself, it's my guesstimation from folks who have expressed their needs that they'd rather have the cash, which has come in the forms of gift cards and resources that folks would be able to use however they need it. And so noting that, when we say food, it also includes toilet paper and paper towel when it's available on a time frame, if it's only available Wednesday morning when the shipment comes in. Those are things that are also important to acknowledge and making sure it's not just charity, it's development. And I really appreciate Councilmember Caballero's comments around acknowledging the equity of this conversation and that everybody doesn't need to get the same thing. And it's about what folks need. And so I just want to make sure I highlight that. And then also adding that I know El Centro has also been doing a lot of work around supporting folks in Durham, and I want to make sure that they're highlighted along with Together for Resilient Youth. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And the communities in partnership.
Thank you. Okay, I guess what I would like is a motion that we empower the city manager.
Mr. Mayor, I think Renetta was seeking recognition.
I'm sorry. Does she have something to say?
I do, if it's not too late.
This is your last chance.
It's my last chance. I'll just say on this item, I think the work ahead of us and the amount of money that we're all going to need to recover from COVID-19 is beyond daunting. But I just want to appreciate however much money this is, appreciate this philanthropic gesture. Just express gratitude that we can have a conversation about how to negotiate these funds. So that's all.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I did have a final nuts and bolts question.
Yeah.
And it once the money comes to us and we disperse it, we can say that it was from a philanthropic source, but people are going to see it as the city spending money. So I'm just curious, insofar as the county's feeding program was implemented through the schools, and we've stopped that. I'm not sure what the feeding program looks like right now. So would we
Yeah,
be just
I can talk about that a little. Would that be helpful?
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I'll suspend. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt you though.
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Right now, so one of the nice things about having a meeting from home is that my neighbor is mowing the grass. Can you hear it? Okay. Well, I can hear it. It's really loud. So the Durham Public Schools Foundation is stepping into the breach to replace the feeding program that Durham Public Schools had to give up because of the staffing situation that they had. Durham Public Schools this Monday gave out meals for students to go for this current week. But starting next week, the Durham Public Schools Foundation is going to be also setting up multiple sites as the schools have, using a lot of those same sites, working with local restaurants, especially minority caterers and restaurants, to provide meals. And they have been raising private dollars for that. I know that they have significant dollars, but if we're talking that the schools was feeding 55 kids, 5,500 kids every day. And so to feed that many kids, the foundation is going to need a lot of money. And so they're reaching out for volunteer site coordinators. The plan is, I'm going to say these things, Councilmember Middleton, and I may get a few of the details wrong, but I'm getting it close. They're going to try to have each site open a couple of times a week, not every day, so that they can minimize contact between both the people receiving the food and the people who are doing the work. They're going to have site coordinators, some public school and other staff, as well as volunteer site coordinators who'll be trained. And they will be depending on private donations, of which they have already received, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But they will need a lot more to do the job. So I think that's all I know, pretty much.
So would it be fair to conceive of us just writing a check to the DPS Foundation? Might that be what this disbursement looks like?
Could be. I mean, that's what the manager and I had talked earlier and said to the donor, would you consider writing a check to, the DPS Foundation? And they said, or another possibility would have been the fund that Duke set up for Durham Recovery, which is going to go to a lot of the same places. They said, we really want to we're writing checks to these other groups. We wanted to write a check to the city. Mm-hmm. And we could certainly turn around and write that check to Durham Public Schools Foundation.
Right. And I'm wondering,
just say, we haven't seen yet they may put some, the reason I want to leave it a little flexible is they may put some strictures around the money. They may say, it's going to go to these emergent needs, but they might say half needs to go to homelessness support and half needs to go to feeding kids. You know what I mean? So I don't want to put too much of a stricture and say, hey, it'll just go to this. But I think that if we just say to the manager, we want you to use this money for the most emergent needs. Okay. And you leave it to his discretion. But you heard what his preference is.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll yield.
Just also noting, that for folks who are confined to their location, delivery also needs to be an option, because there are some folks who are pretty much, going through that 14-day incubation period. And so just noting, I don't know how DPS Foundation is set up to do that, but I know that DCI is doing that.
That's awesome. I'm not sure. I know that I know there's been discussion of mobile feeding, but I don't know how that's been resolved. I assume it has to do with two things, the amount of money they're able to raise and the amount of volunteers that they're able to mobilize that can do that. All righty, I would appreciate a motion that would authorize the city manager in receipt of this private donation in the next 10 days from a private donor for emergent needs related to COVID-19, to authorize him to be able to spend that money and bring back a report to us later on how he did so.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second for the motion that I articulated. And I'm going to ask if there's any further discussion. If not, I'm sorry, Councilmember Middleton.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So there's no amount in this. Do we need to specify not to exceed the amount received from the? They're voted. We haven't specified an amount.
An amount not to exceed the amount we received from the donor.
Got you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manager, I believe we have done our business. We need to settle the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I too am competing with a leaf blower, so if you can't hear me, I apologize. I'm not sure that I want to officially make this comment for the record, but note that for our first virtual work session, we went through conceivably 23 items in a little bit less than an hour. And that might be something that we want to take into consideration for future work sessions about how efficient we can be.
No sign.
How efficient we can be in these virtual environments. But in any event, I want to also thank you and thank all of the staff who I thought did an excellent job today, jumping in and keeping track. Carmisha Wallace kind of helped coordinate a lot of this and shepherd it behind the scenes, and Beverly to get us to this point, but very pleased with the way today went. And we can continue to learn and see if this is the right platform for us to use. For the agenda, though, I do have items on consent 1, 2, and 3, and 5 to 23. And then after council acts on that, I have one other thing I want to mention.
I'll move we settle the agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. We settle the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you. We have settled the agenda. Mr. Manager.
Yes, so if you'll recall, Monday evening during the council meeting, Bertha Johnson was talking about some budget, kind of high-level budget discussions, and the request that we would be making to have the council hold an initial general budget discussion sometime in April. We did suggest the day, I believe it was the 23rd of April, which would be a long day because we have a work session that day. And we've realized that's probably not a good option for a lot of people who are working from home with children and various other situations. So I just wanted to let you know that Bertha will be working with Diana to suggest a couple of alternate days or dates this third or fourth week in June, just to be looking for that. And as quick as you can check your calendars, once we pull that together and get back with us, we can start strategizing about what are the agenda topics that we want to brief you all on that day. That's all I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Let me just ask, just to put on everybody's radar a little, that there are two things that we haven't done yet in terms of moving this. Well, there are three different things, I guess. That one is just the continuing thinking about how to receive public comment. Second is public hearings. I know the administration is thinking about how we do public hearings, but just wanted to mention that to everybody, that's coming. And then the third thing is for the city attorney. We had discussed prior to COVID-19 the potential of a closed session regarding a legal case. And I wonder how we, is that still something you feel that we should do? I mean, we thought it would be helpful to do it because it is potentially important. And at the same time, we're in this current situation. I wondered if you had any comments about that.
So, Mr. Mayor, we haven't gotten a whole lot of guidance from, I haven't gotten a whole lot of guidance from my peers or from the UNC School of Government regarding holding closed sessions through these virtual platforms. One of the thoughts that I had, because the case I did want to discuss is a case that has been previously mediated. We are thinking about trying mediation again in the case. The trial is not scheduled until August in this case. And so you all have been given a lot of background information on the case, and I thought I might just reach out to each of you to update you. And rather than try to do, there are some platforms that provide breakout rooms, but I just think that's a little bit complicated. And to keep it clear, I'll just bring you up to speed on where we are in the discussions.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, colleagues, thank you all so very much. There being no more business to come before this body, I'm going to declare this meeting adjourned at 2:06 p.m.
We love you, Vernetta. We love you. We miss you already.
Yeah, we do.
It's the worst, but we're so excited.
Thanks, y'all.
I'm glad
Appreciate you all.
hopefully you'll still be representing me very soon.
I hope so too. Keep up the good work, everybody. I'll talk to y'all very soon.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Do the thing.